Very good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to our distinguished panel members and audience today. We are here today for yet another discussion with experts from the industry on compliance challenges, practices, and how to deal with these compliance challenges. We have an elite panel with us. Let me quickly start by introducing Anupama Narayanan. Anupama is a governance risk and compliance practitioner at Equitas, which is one of the leading small finance banks based in Chennai, with close to 1,000 branches in India, with 15,000 people operating in a multi-locational presence kind of an environment. She's responsible for implementing the bank's IT governance risk and compliance strategy. Anupama brings over 15 years of industry experience in IT and banking across compliance, cybersecurity, data analytics, and technology policy research. In the past, she has engaged with banks, NBFCs, fintechs, and technology service providers in India to promote technology best practices, cyber resilience, adopting a new and unique business models of innovation through collaboration. She has an executive MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering. Welcome, Anupama.
Thank you, Rishi.
We'll be shortly joined by Yogesh Udhoji. Yogesh is running a few minutes behind, but he should be here shortly. Yogesh is the CFO at Ashirwad Microfinance Limited. He's a chartered accountant with nearly 25 years of rich experience in corporate finance, treasury, MIS, and accounting. In his previous organizations like Aadhar Housing Finance, Tata Capital, 3i Infotech, and Patni Computers, he has spearheaded entire financial and business operations encompassing treasury, financial planning and control, budgeting, taxation, compliances, banking operations, and docket management. We are going to welcome Yogesh shortly. We also will be joined by Ritu Chakraborty. Ritu is the co-founder and executive vice president.
I'm there.
Welcome, Ritu. India's largest staffing firm. She leads the staffing business. She also is a founding trustee, board member, and former president of the Indian Staffing Federation, through which she has played an instrumental role in advocating reform of labor and apprenticeship regime in India. Ritu works closely with regulators and has played a key role in various policy reforms. Welcome, Ritu. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have this panel and discuss how can we future-proof the compliance program. To set the context, COVID has disrupted businesses the way we knew them. Over the last many months, organizations big and small have suffered. It has compelled enterprises to rethink their business model and key business processes. Our enterprises rarely encountered a situation where the mobility of majority of our workforce has been severely restricted. Most of the process designs expected people to be able to come to office and collaborate. Most of the organizations in India have continued to struggle in more ways than one. Compliance management has not been any different. COVID has exacerbated the compliance management challenges. Believe it or not, there has been over 900 regulatory changes which are COVID related in the last 6 months. So with this, let me give a quick context of our discussion today in terms of the regulatory cholesterol that Indian enterprises work with. So while I can share my screen, Indian enterprises deal with a lot of compliances. Just to give you some examples, there are licenses, registrations, permissions, consent orders, returns, registers, challans, displays, notices, exemptions, payments, remittances. These are all examples of various kinds of compliances that Indian organization deals with. There are a battery of 1,536 acts, 69,233 compliances, leading to about 6,618 filings. A multi-business, multi-entity, and multi-locational organization in India deals with a few thousand compliances in a typical year. There are licenses to be renewed, registrations to be maintained, registers to be maintained. There are 20 inspectors which can come and inspect a small enterprise at any point in time. So it's very clear that Indian enterprises deal with a lot of compliance challenges. So with this, let me get our discussion started today. Welcome, Yogesh. Thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, thank you.
Time.
Yeah.
So let me start the discussion with Anupama today, this afternoon. Anupama, You are responsible for managing compliances for Equitas, one of the leading small finance banks, over 1,000 branches, 15,000 people, multi-state presence, and regulated entity. So I'm sure you see compliance and its challenges, management challenges on a day-to-day basis. I'd like you to tell our viewers about what these challenges are, how complex does it become, what are the various difficulties that you see in compliance management in India and day-to-day operations?
Yeah. So, Rishi, I would like to start off by talking about how compliance is a very knowledge intensive function. Be it your own internal policies or mandates laid down by regulatory bodies or industry bodies. Understanding, first of all, identifying and assessing what all each mandate involves. And what are all it also involves extensive interdepartmental work. So the compliance function in itself is not only limited to the compliance officer. So today, if you look at the banking industry in India, you talk to any chief compliance officer or a CISO or even a CTO, they will definitely at the outset talk about how overwhelming it can be, both in terms of both volume and complexity. And if you look at the regulatory perspective from the eyes of the regulator, so just last year alone, between January and July, just compliance breach fines totaled up to 123 crores in local banks in India. So there is a lacune in the way compliance is done in the banking industry in India as far as the regulator is concerned. And if you look at the banking industry, we are constantly playing a catch-up game to make sure we are on top of everything, both operationally, tactically, as well as strategically. So at this juncture, just a couple of months ago, in September, there was a reiteration from RBI in the form of, reiteration in the form of what compliance, the increasing importance of the compliance function and the role of the CCO. So they need to so while creating a culture of compliance becomes important by setting the tone from the top, it's also important to recognize that compliance is a shared responsibility. So how we drive that is the biggest challenge, and I'm hoping to touch upon a few simple but practical interventions that organizations, specifically banks, can undertake. So I think carrot and stick model, if you look at affecting compliance, sticks everyone is aware of. Cost of poor compliance is really high. There are fines, there are penalties, there's bad reputation, and there's of course, in very serious cases, even a banking license can get cancelled. So now coming to incentives, I think having the right organization structure and incentivizing across the organization becomes very important. And driving awareness, just like webinars like these or quizzes, can not only help lighten a dull subject like compliance, but also, spread the awareness and get people talking and facilitate a wider understanding across the bank, rather than limiting it to just the compliance office and the people who are implementing it. So those are a few initial thoughts. I'll probably pause here for your inputs and my co-panelists' thoughts as well.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. Quite insightful. Let me go to Ritu now. Ritu has been a veteran in the industry, has been working for over 20 years with regulators, with over 3,000 employers out there, works with many of them day in and day out, has been advocating policy reform, especially around labor, apprenticeship, and so on and so forth. And some of her insights have been simply accommodated in the labor reform that we all saw. Ritu, from your point of view, when you work with thousands of customers and you see their pains and groans on a day-to-day basis when it comes to labor compliance management particularly, what are your thoughts? What kind of challenges are these organizations up against? How are they scrambling? How are they managing their compliances?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good to be here. So I think the challenges are quite lengthy, but I'm not going to take so much time, and I'll try and categorize them under a few buckets. I think the first and foremost is that multiple laws. I mean, why do we need so many laws? If I were to look at labor alone, out of the 44 central labor codes, if you look at it, 16 of them were actually being used on a regular basis, or which had relevance at workplaces, but the rest existed for the sake of existing. Multiple enforcement authorities. I mean, the number of different touch points, while labor is one subject, but for each and every of these acts, and again, I think if you just multiply, just exponentially look at it, not just limited to labor, if you look at it secretarial, taxation, and so on and so forth, you'll realize it's the same problem. There's just a plethora of authorities at the central level and the state level that you're banging your head with, right? To remain compliant. Then, of course, which your infographic few months back made it very clear to us, is the multiplicity of registrations, filings, and licenses. And in different modes. So it's not that everything is digital, everything is online, but you, while any misses or delays can become very costly for organizations. Little had been considered in terms of how can this entire process be eased, of course, prior to the 4 labor codes from the central labor codes perspective. And then multiplicity of definitions of everything is also something which gets used, gets misused and by employers, and are also used against employers. For example, establishment. For example, wages, workers. I mean, the number of different definitions that people can resort to is fascinating. And I think it was a clear signal that we need to definitely reduce it. Then just from an overarching, not limited to labor, an organization of mid-size organization to run its operation in India needs 27 or so more different kinds of registration or identity numbers, right? So, I mean, I was just going through the list. It's like it's like a mess of abbreviations, you know, LIN, PIN, PAN, God knows what all is going on, but there are almost 27 of them. For an organization to exist, why do we need so many different kinds of identity numbers? Then the fact that there are some stuff which obviously we can fix, which are the low-hanging fruits in my mind. And digitization and digitalization falls under that bucket. I feel government per se, for a minute if I leave industries and corporates aside, are losing out on precious information and data point on account of inadequate investments in digitization and digitalization. So that's why our ability to respond to the changes that are happening in the environment is so slow. So government's ability to respond, because there is, in some cases, you've seen adoption of technology, but in a large number of instances, be it at the central government level or at the state level, digitization technology is not being leveraged at all, which means precious information. And in a dynamic world that we live in, which can actually plow back into some extremely critical insight. I mean, we live in the world of data science. We live in the world of, big data, and God knows what else is going, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And here is a country which actually can possibly, leverage some very critical information and showcase the importance of these insights through our policy making, but we are not doing it. And then again, from a business perspective, sometimes organizations get so used to, as a matter of fact, I was chatting with the labor secretary, had time to spend chatting with him over the last 1 month, at least 3-4 occasions. And he was like, Ritu, so much is being said about reform and why we need to do so to create more jobs or so on and so forth. Do you really think that 4 labor codes is going to impact the organizations or the larger companies? So at the face of it, yes, we have made peace, if I may say so, with the complexity that exists. And if you're a large organization, you probably have large legal teams, your ability to invest in advisors, advocates, lawyers is more, and hence you have factored that into your operating cost, right? But at the end of the day, if you look at it, that why should you have considered it? Yes, you've right now made peace with it, but is there a way you can release this expense, this cost, this bandwidth? at a philosophical level, we were doing this analysis some time back. 600 trees are being cut by organization for the name of compliances every year at a mid-sized company. And then, of course, one can do the mathematical expression of it in terms of how much it has impact on turnover, and then how much it impacts your ability to compete at a global level. But I think these are, at a very broad level, some of the issues and some of the challenges that I guess we are dealing with, and we need to confront them head on. I think we've we've set the ball rolling with the 4 labor codes, but honestly, that is just the beginning of the journey. I think we still have a lot to do in state reforms. We have to do a lot in terms of ensuring uniform adoption of technology across all the 4 labor codes and so on and so forth. Trust me, this is a subject, Rishi, I can go on talking about, so I shall take a break now.
So very interesting points made there, Ritu. And just to bring some numbers in perspective here, Ritu mentioned that a typical company deals with at least 27 licenses, and I just want to qualify 27 is for an MSME. So if you are an MSME, you're dealing with about 15 central and 12 state level registrations, assuming you're operating in one state and you are doing some regular business, you're not a very regulated entity. And as you increase the size of this organization and go be present in multiple states, suddenly the number of licenses exponentially shoot up, and you're looking at a few hundred to deal with. That's one. Second, the law of the land is very dynamic in India. One of the key challenges, Ritu, that we see on a day-to-day basis is the law changes about 3,000 times a year. Just during COVID, we have recognized 901 regulatory changes which are COVID related. There are others also, but these are only COVID related regulatory changes, and they become applicable immediately. So what this really means is organizations need to know about what has changed, where it got published, get a copy of the change that has happened, understand the implications of the change, and factor it into their compliance program. And all of this is expected in a scenario where these changes are published on 2,233 different websites today. And someone like Anupama, who's dealing with over 1,000 branches in the country and operating in, I'm sure, Anupama, more than 15 states, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you imagine a scenario where 15 states would probably mean at least 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 websites that the government expects Anupama to actually scan, understand what's changed, take action, and all of this is happening in real time. I often, visualize it as being on a plane with somebody constantly tinkering with the engine of the plane. That's a very uncomfortable feeling, and that's what most compliance officers go through. So let me now bring Yogesh into the conversation. Yogesh leads compliance at Asirvad Microfinance. We discussed this earlier when he was away. Yogesh, thank you for joining us on time.
Yeah.
You are dealing with a lot of complexity on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring you in. There is labor, clearly, because 47% of India's compliance burden comes from labor. But then you are an NBFC and you deal with microfinance related regulations in addition to all the finance, taxation, secretarial, and so on and so forth. From your perspective, how do you view compliance? How do you manage it? What are the key challenges?
So there are many challenges. I mean, when we say compliance, we say regulatory compliance. So when we say regulator, we should know how many regulators you have. So first of all, see, I being a chartered accountant and as a CFO of the company, so possibly my limitation is largely to the RBI compliance. But RBI is one of the regulator which is applicable for NBFC. Apart from that, you have SEBI, you have Companies Act, then you have that I'm talking from the secretarial and your finance perspective. But apart from that, then you have from the labor side, you have lot many. So we have 23 states. We are operating in 23 states and 1,000 plus branches. So then, I mean, if we multiply it, so the magnitude of the compliance is even, I mean, honestly, I will submit here that I don't know. I mean, so I may be a compliant officer, but I am compliant or not, even I can't assure you. So I always thought uh, like compliance is a function, it's a by like somebody who's in CS who will become compliance head, who is somebody who is in like CFO made a compliance head, somebody as an operation head being made compliance head. But that subject is very it's a very difficult subject, and it is till now I would say it was ignored by many companies. Like, I mean, company will always run on the first and foremost target is your profit making. So you have a sales, then you have an operation, you have a credit which is giving an importance in the company. Then obviously as a CFO, a treasury function is also equally important. But always compliance is always was taking a back seat till now. But now I think as Anupama mentioned, so there has been regulator has realized it. We have seen the fallback of non-compliant organization, and it is now catching up. And MNCs are definitely giving top priority to compliance. So large, well-managed Indian corporates are also now have recognized the need of it. But still, I'm saying it's a so vast subject that it's beyond our. I mean, as a single person to comprehend it, it's very difficult. And I always felt that technology should a technology or take based solutions as is you cannot live without it. Like, I mean, as a banking industry, I cannot compute my interest on Excel. I have to use technology. So software or technology has evolved in the banking industry, and I'm sure it has to get evolved in the compliance piece as well. Otherwise it is difficult to manage it uh, without the help of technology.
So very well said, Yogesh. Thank you so much. Funnily enough, I was doing some computation a few
Hmm.
days ago on how many compliances are there for branch operation for an NBFC,
Right.
and believe it or not, there were like 15 or 16 just displays at a branch level, right?
Correct.
And these are mandatory, statutory, and failing which, in some cases, there are penal provision leading up to jail term,
Right.
right? So I mentioned earlier that we have 69,233 compliances in India. Believe it or not, out of that, 26,134 have provisions for criminalization in jail term,
Very
right?
good.
So a typical enterprise is dealing with a lot of them. However, they are ignorant of the fact that they are dealing with so many criminal proceedings. Now,
Correct.
with that said, I absolutely agree with you that one of the key challenges that compliance officers have today is a lack of knowledge on what is applicable, right? And if you
Correct.
can't measure something, you actually can't manage it, right? So if
True.
you're managing an organization with 1,000 plus branches, both you and Anupama are pretty much in the same boat with a multi-state operation, and every state has its own nuances, its own thresholds, its own ambiguity and understanding, its own minimum wage combinations, and so on and so forth.
Correct.
Managing compliances can technically be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, ignorance of the law is not an excuse for non-compliance. So at some point, if push comes to shove, things go downhill, things fall through the cracks, ultimately the key management personnel are responsible. Companies Act of
Absolutely.
2013 has brought in provisions for criminal proceedings in jail term. So I think our compliance officers totally agree with you, are dealing with a fairly chaotic environment, and compliance management becomes a binding constraint for growth management in long run.
Correct.
Now, at this point, I think we have concluded the phase one of our conversation. I would like to bring our audience into the conversation. We have a small poll. We would like to seek your inputs on what you think about compliance management and so on. There are a handful of questions. It will take just a few minutes. Abhay, I
Yeah.
request you to bring up the poll. I request the panelists also to take the poll. There are just a handful of questions. Will take you less than a minute to answer them. I really request you to engage, participate, and let us know what you think of these critical questions in compliance. We use this data in a number of ways. It helps us get your view into the conversation. Those of you who's watching it on Facebook may not be able to see it and engage with it. We would invite you to engage with us on the same subject offline. So I'm watching how responses are coming in. And one of the questions which is close to my heart is, I believe tracking compliances using a technology platform will help manage it better. And there are 100% responses in favor of a yes. Agree. There is no doubt that technology is going to play a vital role in bringing order to this chaos. There's another question. It is high time we change the paper-based compliance filings. Right. So far, 45 people have answered this. And there are 100% agreements that people believe paper-based compliances should be a thing of the past. I'll keep the poll open for another 30 seconds. Request you to quickly go through it. We really value your inputs here. There's one person who has disagreed that managing compliance in India is challenging. We certainly want to invite the person for our next webinar.
Probably inadvertently clicked on disagree.
Another 15 seconds and we close the voting. Okay. Last 5 seconds, just in case somebody is yet to submit. Well, thank you. I'll share the results towards the end. I know Ritu has to leave a little early. She has a conflicting commitment. So for the second part of our discussion, let me first bring Ritu and then we'll bring Anupama and Yogesh. So Ritu, in your opinion, I mean, we are dealing in a country where we're expecting us to get to a $5 trillion and $10 trillion GDP in the next few years. If this has to happen, Indian organizations have to grow rapidly, not at an organic rate. A lot of organizations will set up new plants, factories. We are already seeing a lot of focus around industrialization, manufacturing, and so on. However, the problem here is compliance management continues to be a vital binding constraint. And if organizations do not do a good job of compliance management, this is not going to happen. So in your opinion, working with a few thousand customers in India across 30, 40 different industries over a period of last 20 years, what are some of the key practices that you have seen work really well for organizations? How can they manage their compliance management, future-proof their compliance management, set in the practices? What are those tips, techniques? What should they do differently to get there?
So I'm going to come at this problem from a perspective of the multiple 5 trillion, 3 trillion, whatever the number that we're aiming for, 5 trillion, let's say. As a country, I'm going to come in from that angle. I feel for us to achieve that ambition, India needs to have added focus and quite rapidly move towards industrialization, urbanization, formalization, financialization, and human capital. Essentially develop and speed ahead on each of these areas. So I think if you've noticed, Rishi, the only thing that is like, there was a time when elections were won on roti, kapda, makan, and all of that. That narrative has completely changed. Today, you can only win elections based on jobs and jobs and jobs, right? And good quality jobs of dignity. So if that's what we are aiming for, if we are looking to ensure that 9 out of the, or rather today 9 out of the 10 kids by design go into the informal sector, if we are intending to change that equation, um, and uh, uh, and if we essentially, while India is the 5th largest from a GDP perspective, but we are 138th from a per capita consumption perspective, which clearly tells us that India doesn't really have a job problem, it has a wage problem, which means there is somewhere the productivity levels of Indian enterprises is not where it ought to be. If that's what we are dealing with, then we really need to reduce all possible challenges and hurdles that organizations have so that they can freely speed ahead. And we know that in India, anybody for India is a hostile habitat for entrepreneurs, because the moment you're trying to reach scale, the moment you from a tiny baby you try to grow, the ecosystem of, let's say, the 27 registrations just for you to exist, the ecosystem of those 70,000 compliances and 3,000 plus acts and 1,000 plus 3,000 plus filings and 1,000 plus acts become a reality, a scary reality. And like rightly mentioned, in India, I mean, somebody was joking that in India you cannot operate and succeed fair and square without, by design, not complying by 10% of the laws, because you just don't know what you're missing, right? So I think, and that also add to fear that has actually crippled organizations from freely expanding in India, from freely investing in India, and all of that finally cost the economy, cost us jobs. So if I were any of those entrepreneurs or enterprises, I would be looking at, can some of these things that we unnecessarily battle every day as enterprises be taken away from me? Which means, can I actually go to sleep well at night without worrying that which all laws did I miss? Or if I have this office in Barmer, whether that guy is, fulfilling all his state requirements of compliances, or is he displaying all the boards? Does he even know what to display, first and foremost? I think if we are not ensuring that organizations are relieved of these mundane worries, this really, we can't read that those $5 trillion will become great media sound bites, and $5 trillion economy will become great media sound bites. So the crux of the matter is, what organization really needs is a system, a solution, a platform through which they can actually rest assured that, look, I'm not missing anything, or my risks are mitigated to the largest extent possible in terms of whatever we are made aware of. And I think it is kind of an imperative. Like, for example, all of us had to move to GST invoicing, right? I mean, you don't have an option. I personally feel that enterprises and organizations should put the same kind of self-regulation to say that I need to invest in a technology solution or a platform which essentially does the mundane job of remembering, telling me what's going wrong and what is right. And if such solutions are available, I think I see no reason why one should not invest in it. Because pandemic has told us that, look, we cannot now anymore deploy physical resources. And pandemic has happened today. You never know what's going to happen next. I mean, hope not, but you don't know. And that's why I personally, I mean, I'm a geek to that extent who believes that if my mundane, repetitive problems can be solved through technology, I should just jump to it. So Rishi, my perspective is very clear. I think we are quick to invest in the best of laptops and the best of phones. I wish we do the same when it comes to building organizational capabilities and intelligence around compliances. And the day we see that wave and the day we adopt it, a lot of the kitsch unnecessary wastage, which I call around administrative compliance related stuff, will go away. So yeah, I guess I gave you a long answer to your short question.
No, very well said. And I totally echo your thoughts there, Ritu. If you look at Indian enterprises, and there's a beautiful book by Arun Sukumar written on the history of technology in India. And some of the key things that come out in general is Indian enterprises started investing in technologies in late 80s, early 90s. Started with accounting systems, then ERPs, and over a period of time CRMs, then came HRMS systems and payroll systems. And all of these have been great investments. They have helped enterprises become scalable, bring in the power of technology to manage repeatable items, improve efficiency. But if you look at the life of a compliance officer, that really hasn't changed. The funny thing is, there are about 10,000 odd listed companies in India, 20,000 or 22,000 companies with paid up share capital of more than 10 crores, 70,000 companies with revenues of over 5 crores. But when you look at their compliance practices, the compliance officer, while he or she is responsible to the shareholders board and can technically go to jail today, they really don't have the tools and techniques. They just go ahead and print up a compliance certificate and tell the board that yes, we are compliant with the law of the land. But if you just hear what Yogesh had to say a few minutes ago, there's no way they are even going to know how many compliances are applicable. So that's really a big problem and big challenge, and Yogesh has just joined in again. So Ritu, thank you for bringing that perspective. Digitization is here to stay, and I know you have to leave, so
yeah, thank you so much. Thanks Anupama, thanks Yogesh. We'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks Rishi.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Bye.
So Anupama, with that, let me bring you into the conversation. Ritu mentioned that the law has to change, India has to rationalize, simplify, digitize, but that's outside the locus of control of a company. As a company, we still have to do what the law requires us to do every day. Managing 1,000 branch operation with 15,000 people, every branch having a few tens of compliance items on a monthly basis, I'm sure it is not easy. So let me bring you in as to what the best practices have been, what things have you used, what do you plan to use, how do you want to streamline this, how do you want to future proof your compliance management. I would love for you to share some of these items with our audience so that when they walk away from here, they walk away with some tips that they can use.
Sure, Rishi. So I think Ritu brought out some very valid points. We're living in a VUCA world, and compliance should not stand in the way of India's ease of doing business. We did jump up quite a few ranks just in the last year, from 190 odd to I think we're now in the 63rd position. So said that, how can we make compliance easy? So tech-led compliance is definitely the way to go. While it is complex, the regulatory environment is ever changing. Every circular, if you see, has a reference to at least 2 or 3 earlier circulars. So let's at least look at what is repeatable, predictable, what is amenable to automation. And there are several aspects. There are at least 3 that I can think of. One, workflow management. The moment a compliance circular lands in the hands of a compliance personnel, and then it goes through several departments all the way till it is implemented by somebody, and closing the loop with the regulator saying, hey, so we have complied and this is the evidence. So that whole workflow management is fairly simple. At least that aspect, I think any organization, not just banks, should consider investing in. Two, staying on top of the circulars itself. So at least in a week, I see about 30 different circulars from the likes of NPCI, RBI, PIFRID, IRDA, so many regulatory bodies like Yogesh was listing out. So just to make sure we don't miss anything, at least have an exhaustive list of what you need to comply with. So there again, technology can easily play a role. And I think the third part is routine regulatory returns filing and submissions, getting rid of paperwork or things that we know that on a periodic basis we're going to be communicating with the, with the regulator. So these are 3 areas right off the bat where I can think organizations should definitely look at investing in tools and technologies. And there are plenty in the market, and I think it's for each compliance office to evaluate thoroughly and definitely consider investing in. That is one. And if you look at an organization at large, I think aligning the right people, process, and tech, all 3 pieces will help put together an effective compliance function. And apart from this, if you look at, like with anything in work and life, I think it's important to look at why we have to comply. So there's public interest in economy at large. And I think understanding the spirit of compliance and embracing it really helps forge a sense of purpose and meaning. So if you look at watershed moments in our banking regulation history, like for instance, few circulars that come to mind are limiting customer liability when there is an electronic transaction fraud. Then more recently, card security, enhancing card security. There could be improved customer experience. So the essence of what each circular is trying to convey will really help sort of assimilating and driving a culture of compliance in the organization. So, and again, I think appointing compliance PMs is a must. Even though we have business PMs, we have tech PMs, but then these people definitely need to sit in the middle, facilitate, communicate with everyone and keep the projects going and ensure there are no breaches. That's a very effective but simple intervention. So these are some thoughts that I have and some
So,
practices that we employ and we've seen some results.
so on that subject, Anupama, totally agree with you. In year 2019, there were 3,063 regulatory changes. In year 2020, there have already been over 4,000 regulatory changes. COVID created an unusual activity within the regulatory change environment. There were over 901 changes. One thing that we have done as a company, and we are committed to digitization in this space, is brought in a lot of resources for free for people, right? And I would like to highlight a couple of things our audience should benefit from it. First thing, let me share my screen. So I hope you can see my screen. It's our website at avantis.co.in. It is India's first and the only portal that provides comprehensive national, real-time and personalized regulatory updates. It gets updated many times a day, typically within 24 hours of the release of the update. If you see, yesterday there were 17 regulatory changes. This week already 112. This month 358, close to 1,200 for the quarter and 4,300 for the year. We have digitized this whole thing. You can click on it and you can actually go and look at the lower level details broken down by industry, state, center, regulator, ministry, department, broken it down by the notification type, notification category. Everything has been digitized. You can click on any change and you can go review the synopsis of the change to Anuradha, to Anupam, to earlier point made, and download the gazette or the notification right there. If you don't want to do it like this, you can subscribe, put up your preferences. It takes 2 minutes to subscribe. Here are your preferences. You can choose your preferences, create a free account, and we will start sending you a newsletter free of cost in your mailbox. In addition, there is Rulesbook app. The Rulesbook app is a free app. It is iOS and Android, and it allows you to get all of this on your mobile app as well. There is a user manual right here at the bottom. You can simply click on the user manual and it will allow you to download the app, personalize it. It takes under 5 minutes to personalize it and set yourself up with the choice of center, states, various union territories, industries that you're responsible and interested in, and categories of compliance. It sets you up, and like this, in a very simple, easy to use manner, you can start keeping on top of all the regulatory changes and get these circulars directly into your mailbox without having to scramble through 2,233 websites across center, state, and local laws. So this is a free resource. We'd love for you to go download the app, use it, click through, search, sort, filter. We have digitized the entire compliance management database of the country. So please use this as a resource. It will be a first step towards digitization. Instead of you having to look through updates, they'll directly come into your app or mobile. So with this, let me bring Yogesh back into the conversation. Anupama, thank you so much for bringing that view. And I wanted to make sure that our audience knows that Avantis is a company committed to digitization. We are working with over 1,500 customers across the length and breadth of India, across 40 different industries. Some of the largest NBFCs are a part of our customer database with thousands of locations around the country. So Yogesh, the reality is the law is changing, the reforms are happening, but not fast enough, right? We have jumped ranks. Anupama mentioned that from 144, we have jumped to 63rd in ease of doing business. It's great, but the reality is a compliance officer still has to deal with so much on a given day. We have to produce compliance certificates. You have to ensure law of the land is being tracked, followed, paperwork is available, misplacements of paperwork doesn't happen, compliance certificates are accurate. All of these are things that you do. We would love to hear from you as to what are the tips and tricks that you have taken up. How have you brought in the culture of compliance within your company? What can audience learn from your experiences to manage the compliance environment better?
Yeah, I mean, so see, compliance is, I mean, as I mentioned previously, also is a very vast and uh, I mean, difficult subject to absorb at times. So, first of all, for us, it's very critical that we take a note of all the new notifications and which are prescribed by RBI. For us, I mean, for us, we always like, I mean, RBI is always at the top of our the compliance. I mean, one of the key regulator. I mean, so in terms of priority, I have to say that RBI is there, then followed by Companies Act and the CB, and then others will fall in line. Or like, I mean, GST is obviously there, but GST, I think so far we have been able to deal with it because there have been no, like, I mean, till now we have been only doing filing part of it. So now that assessment has not yet started. I mean, as you, like we used to see earlier in the service tax regime. So from 2017, I think we in our company itself only one or two uh, notices we have received so far. So as we start receiving it now, we have 23 states, so it will be in the bulk. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, but so far that so the RBI being critical, so like it's very critical for us to know the new regulations and which are being uh, regulator has announced. And currently, the source of this information coming to us is through multiple consultants. Like we have one GST consultant, we have one corporate law. For company law, we have one consultant. For RBI, though we can do directly because RBI is again, as I said, being critical regulator. We have been trying to have one dedicated resource for that, but this is how we are trying to manage it currently. But again, I will say that this is not a smart idea. In the sense, I will say that if there is one source from where we can get all the information, that is what the desired mode of getting the relevant sections, relevant data, relevant notifications, and gist of that. And maybe in sometimes you need exact circular. Uh, so likewise, the way it's being managed, it's not a appropriate way of managing it. But yes, I mean, by experience, by like we have spent 25 years after qualification, and then we have been managing it all along. So this is how we are managing it. But yes, I mean, there are better ways to do it, and I have been mentioning that the technology has been key for us in every aspect of our life. So it will definitely going to play a bigger role. And yes, and so always I wanted that one person there should be one person who have all the expertise and who can always collate all the relevant information, and then he channelize it through all the, so the he will be the main source, and then he will so like Anupama was mentioning a project manager. He should be, there has to be key person, who is in compliance project manager or a compliance officer who can collate it and channelize it to the respective departments and ensure the compliance. His job is not only to give the relevant sections or notifications, but he has to also ensure that it's been complied with also. So that be it a compliance manager, with the source of information is very critical. So right now it's being managed. It's not an maybe it's not an appropriate way to manage it. There are better ways to
Excellent. Well, cost of poor compliance in India has gone up quite sharply. And
manage. Yeah,
if you look at the
true.
last 5 years or so, the governance, risk, and compliance have become more important in the boardroom conversations. We hog greater amount of time on boardroom agendas. Independent directors, board members are focused more on some of these questions. They have a realization that better governed companies trade at a premium on stock exchanges. They are able to access equity and debt capital with ease. Shareholders pay a higher premium for well managed, well governed companies. So what we see out there in the marketplace is increasingly any mature organization is starting to take compliance very seriously. They are instituting practices and processes via technology. Web and mobile platforms are now available. Consolidated regulatory updates, interpretation, and dissemination distribution across web and mobile platforms are easy now. Anupama mentioned workflow-based processes. Avantis has one of the leading platforms in the industry on that subject. We work with over 1,000 companies, 1,500 companies to be precise, on trying to do that. So totally agree with you, Yogesh. The age of ad hoc, manual, paper-based, people-dependent compliance programs is gone. One bad episode on compliance will put severe financial and reputational penalties on organizations. And board today is unwilling to take that chances. Right? They are willing to invest in systems and processes so that you can migrate to more digital, process-oriented, repeatable, predictable kind of a compliance program. So I think totally agree with you, and we have been an advocate of the same. We are working with a lot of companies in this, and it's a trend that is there. Uh, Propensity to take risk has gone down quite a lot in the recent times. So I think we are at 3:52, 8 more minutes left into the conversation. So one thing is I would like to invite our audience so that they can put questions in the Q&A section. You will all see a Q&A section at the bottom. Please feel free to put in questions so that, and please direct them to one of our panelists if you would like them to answer the question, and we'll answer them. In the meantime, I do request Abhay to bring up the results of the poll. So here are the results. 98% people believe that managing compliance is really challenging in India. 57% agree with the fact that my organization has paid some fines and penalties due to missed compliance in the last 12 months. 100% believe that tracking compliance using technology platform will help manage it better. 100% agree that it's time we change the paper-based compliance filings. 66% believe that my organization has missed at least one critical compliance in the last 12 months. 93% believe that managing compliances during COVID-19 have been really challenging, and totally agree with it. COVID-19 has presented, unprecedented challenges. People have not been able to meet. They don't have the regulatory update in time. Paper-based filings, which is almost 80-90% of India's filings, have suffered because mobility has been restricted. Consultants have not come to rescue. Seamless flow of information has not been there. Simple to use dashboards have not been there. So that's been a big challenge right there. So 93% people believe that. 98% of them believe it's challenging to stay on top of all the regulatory updates. And 89% believe that filing compliances are often missed because they are paper-based. So as we can see, no surprises there. This is something that we have seen across the board. We conduct similar polls in various webinars, and this is a common theme that emerges. A, managing compliance in India is complex. Across the board, across industries, across levels, people believe that. B, digitization is going to help. The practice of bringing the right system technology will help expedite the cultural shift in the organization. That's a common theme that we are seeing. Migration from an ad hoc paper-based, people-dependent to a more digital one is going to provide a release and rescue and relief to compliance officers. These are all common themes that we've been saying, and happy to see that this bunch of audience that we have today believe in the same thing. So we are getting towards the end of our discussion today. While we wait for audience to ask some questions, Anupama, back to you. Any specific changes you would like to see in regulatory regime in India?
Um, I would like to point out how compliance is intricately linked with governance and risk management. And as we know, audits and inspections have assumed increasing importance. So it'll be worthwhile for organizations to evaluate compliance risks, at least on an annual basis. Take stock of all the circulars or all the compliance mandates that are applicable, and test your controls. Ensure they're effective. I would recommend that as an annual exercise for all organizations.
Okay, so you're referring to an annual thorough review of compliances. We recommend very similar two types of reviews. One is an applicability review. Applicability review basically means that during the course of the year, you may have added new branches, new equipment, new machinery. You may have picked up new businesses. You may have started servicing new geographies. You may have started new plants. All of these will have implications on your compliance. So it's very important to do a thorough due diligence once in a year so that you are not missing critical compliance. And companies like Avantis provide these services. It's not difficult to get these services. They come very cheap. It's not like they are going to drill a hole in people's pocket. That's a great best practice. The second one that we also talk about is a thorough review, making sure that you've not, while you may have done the compliance, for all you know, you've used incorrect formulas, you've done incorrect calculations, you've missed some thresholds, right? And making sure that a pair of eyes who are experts on the subject can take a look at it, look at your, say, for example, a PF return or a ESI or LWF or professional tax or company act oriented returns, look at them and identify if there are any misses, if there are any bad calculations, bad formats, old formats, because some of these are going to come and bite you in the back in years to come. So for a small fee, you can get some of these services done, and they go a long way in providing a good night's sleep, because you know that another pair of eyes who bring in expertise is able to look at this. So totally agree with you, Anupama, over there, and great point made. Yogesh, some last parting comments on how companies can, or what would you like to see differently done?
No, I mean, as you and Anupama rightly said, I mean, third party should evaluate and certify. So I think maybe in the times to come, maybe the board members will also suggest that, like you do an internal audit and you have a statutory audit is obviously it's a statutory requirement, but the internal audit is again you can have your own team, but the bigger and bigger corporates always have a third party engagement for internal audit, so which certifies the work done by their own internal audit team and gives some assurance to the board members. So in terms of compliance also it's very much required. That's what I believe, because in compliance we always feel that we are compliant but we may not be. So that is again that's a very risky situation, and again as a compliance risk is very high reputation risk for a company. So it's very important.
So totally agree with you. Over the last few years, the culture has changed. Organizations are taking greater cognizance. They are trying to build processes and systems in place. This has been a journey, and I think the COVID is going to bring the world of digitization forward. Last few years, India has seen a lot of digitization. If you see last month, there were 2 billion digital payments that India did, which is unprecedented anywhere else in the world. The way we hail cabs via Ubers and the Olas, the way we consume food via the Swiggies and the Zomatos, the world is changing. Digitization and technology platforms are changing human behavior. In enterprises, we adopted technology in different ways, and time has come that compliance becomes digital. The risk is not worth it. There are penal provision leading up to jail term. Almost 40% of our compliances have a jail term associated with it. And nobody that I know in the corporate world would want to go visit a jail because of non-compliance. So I think there is enough incentive to go digital, build in processes, build in systems. We have a couple of questions. Can technology actually replace the human intervention in compliance? Somebody has asked this question. Good question. Technology can replace repeatable, low value adding, common functions. But I'll give you an example of Tally. When you buy Tally, you don't replace an accountant. You make an accountant smarter. Tally as a product does not replace an accountant. It helps an accountant do their job better. So digital systems will not replace humans who are required to do the job. It will make humans smarter. Today, if you look at a company secretary who spends many years getting becoming a company secretary, spends 60 to 80% of their day in ultra low value adding, mundane, repeatable follow-ups via mail, phone calls, and so on. Whereas they ideally need to migrate towards becoming a governance professional. How will they ever have time to become a governance professional if they're spending 60 to 80% of their day in mundane and repeatable activities? So a technology platform is not going to replace humans. It is going to make humans smarter, more efficient, more productive. It will help them take up more value adding items. Anupama, Yogesh, any comments?
Absolutely, Rishi. Yeah, I
Correct,
think it's
correct.
definitely going to require human judgment at any point in time. But like you said, there are several aspects of compliance which can be surely automated as on date. But who knows, down the line there could be AI-driven compliance. I mean, all of that sounds really new at this point in time. But I don't see technology replacing human, intervention. But it's going to, like you said, make life easier.
Yogesh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you cannot ask technology to find returns. I mean, that you have to do, you have to put in the figures, but only thing technology will make you smarter or technology will ensure that you don't miss any compliance, single compliance. So that is what is important for us.
Sure.
That is,
I have another question. In villages and even in cities, the small scale businesses which are establishing don't know about compliances. Do they need to worry about it, or the small scale businesses have no concern about compliances? Ashutosh has asked this question. So Ashutosh, my answer to you is there are formal enterprises and there are informal enterprises. Any formal enterprise today in India deals with at least 364 compliances in a year. An MSME deals with that in the state of Maharashtra. We did a similar exercise in the state of Karnataka and we found the number to be around 378. If you look at most states, the compliances are between 350 and 400 for an MSME. And when I talk about MSME, I'm not talking at the higher end of MSMEs. I'm talking about a 5 to a 10 crore revenue organization employing 100 to 150 people in India. So knowledge of compliance is essential. Lack of knowledge of compliance is no excuse for non-compliance. Law does not give you a benefit that you didn't know. If you're running a business in India, you need to know, and the penalty is huge. Comments, Anupama, Yogesh?
Agree, it's non-negotiable. Sooner than later, an organization will need to start bucking up.
yeah, correct.
Another question, don't you feel that government actually needs to be more advanced in technology, thereby organizations can benefit from using platforms? Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Digitization is the way to go. If digital systems are there, like government has already done in income tax and GST, it allows for reduction in leakages, auto identification of misses, auto identification of defaults, frauds. A lot of those things can be done automatically. Today, in a country like India, out of 63 million enterprises, 12 million are registered for GST. And 12 million registered payees for GST, there is no way humanly possible that government can reconcile, rationalize, identify frauds so easily and so on. So if technology is deployed, there will be multiple benefits. One, the users can benefit from it. Filing these returns can happen much easier. Calculations can happen very easily. Receipts can be there. All of that can be there. And on the other, government can do auto reconciliation, gap identification, default identification, leakage identification, fraud flagging. All of these things can also happen. So couldn't agree more. Digitization is the way to go. digital technologies will change governance both in corporates as well as governments. Any comments?
Yeah, I would just like to add that we have seen rapid strides in e-governance. Said that the government should also let the market forces play out. It can't be an end-to-end, e-governance should belong where it does, and then where market forces need to play out, they should. So that's my view.
Yogesh?
No, what you said, it's absolutely.
Good. So I think there are two other questions. Do you think using digital compliance tools will help to reduce human intervention? Anupama, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I think we took this. It's definitely going to bring down the extent of human intervention, that out of the mundane routine tasks, where it's going to require certain nuanced, judgment and knowledge. Those aspects will remain. I think we saw that.
Absolutely. So just like everything else in life, computer can automate repeatable things. Computer seldom creates. Human creativity is still required for, designs and stuff like that. And here also, computers can automate only so much. The rest of that requires judgment, decision making, which still is out of the ambit of digital systems. So I think we have covered almost all the questions. There may be repeats out there. So thank you so much for joining in. Yogesh, Anupama, I thank you so much on behalf of everyone at Avantis. Appreciate the time that you took, and our audience have been great. Thank you so much, audience, for joining in and engaging with us, giving us answers on the poll. Your inputs mean a lot. We look forward to working with all of you, helping you comply better, building smarter systems, technology platforms, building processes in the company. That's the vision that Avantis is working with, which is to help India comply. So until next time, I say goodbye to all of you and thank all our audience and our panelists here. Thank you, Anupama and Yogesh. Really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yogesh, for a good discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.